Hello. I haven't done this for a while. Um, got nothing better to do, so I thought I'd continue my story. The reason I'm just doing an audio recording is because it's easy. I don't have to worry about how I look. I've just finished chopping a tree down. I'm sweaty, I'm filthy, I've got crap all over the place. I don't feel like cleaning it up, but I feel like doing some talking. Excuse my nose, it's still blocked. I can hardly breathe through it, so you have to put up with a little nasal uh, sound. But here we go. I wanted to talk about when it basically started for me. The first experience I really had, the first crazy hyperdimensional experience that was just out there, it just took me by surprise, was in 2005, November 2005. A couple of weeks running up to I think it was my 41st birthday. Was I born 64? Uh, yeah, something like that. Um, it was strange. It was a time. It wasn't a good time financially. I was pretty much looking at financial trouble. I had to do something pretty bad, but I don't know why it comes at times like that. Sometimes, no, it doesn't always come at times like that. That's the only time it actually came at times like. Other time it came when I was when I was okay. But that first time, I didn't have a lot of money. I don't know how I got the money to go driving around like I did. It's a funny thing. The driving around, it was as if I was taking these guys on a tour of the countryside. I don't know why we get these crazy ideas, but it's all supported by the intuition and the synchronicity, and I'm sure it's quite real because experiences later on, people would just say it are crazy and very, very real. And who can say it's crazy when I'm lying in bed and I can feel somebody touching me? I've had that so often now, so many times. Just the other night, I felt somebody working on my teeth. Somebody was messing with my teeth, and I knew it'd stop if I opened my eyes or said something like the time I felt somebody. I was laying there in bed. I was awake. Um, it seemed as if I was asleep, I guess, to these entities or whoever it was, because I was laying there in bed, and somebody put their hands over my face, like the fingers to the side of my head with the thumbs together, just over my nose, the top of my nose, and sort of, it was like they were just trying to feel around my head or something, feel the vibrations, or maybe read my mind somehow. I don't know what they do. And this was after a bit of a battle, you might say, like on Facebook, with a person who seemed to be channeling um, some, because people channel all the time. I see people get totally out of character, getting sort of taken over by certain entities. I can't identify them, but and this person was just would completely uh, elude the question, would never give a straight answer. It was really funny, you know. But anyway, I call them bridge trolls because it's like you're fighting bridge. We're not fighting, but you but you're getting tested by bridge trolls all the time. And if you pass the sort of test, you can see their point of view because they're actually it's a point of a threshold of relativity that they sort of manifest. And once you see the purpose and validity of it, and then you can understand it. It's like the saying, um, What's that saying? I've got it. I did actually save it on the computer here. It's fantastic. It's in that movie, Ender's Game. Yeah. I've got so many things here. Hang on. Bang, bang, bang. Yeah, it's A. Wigan is his name. When I understand my enemy well enough to defeat him, then in that moment I also love him. Yeah, that's that. That's sort of very true when you bouncing through bridge trolls. You know, it's trying to get from trying to you're just always doing that, especially in these moments of compressed time, these moments when you're in these hyperdimensional experiences when intuition is just going off, and everything is synchronous. Everything is synchronicity. You start to see that everything is timed to perfection. When you're in the moment, you're actually in synchronization with a sort of planned, or not necessarily planned, but a congruent um, procedure. That sort of meshes in with a whole bunch of others. When you're in the moment, when you're in timing, that's when you really notice synchronicity, and it comes out through everything. Everything is synchronicity. Everything is talking to me, and I'm sure other people experience that as well. Another reason I'm doing this audio only is, and I'm making the file size as small as possible, so a lot of users are still on 56K, or at least it's the one sort of YouTube video they can actually listen to. But enough about that and my excuses. I don't know why I feel like ranting today. It's probably because I got a few things done today, and I don't feel too bad about being so lazy. Because lately I've just been so the monotony of the daily chores has really been hard to do after the experiences I've had. Just so far out of this world. They're so interesting. It's so exciting. It's like to go back to the daily drag is so difficult. So difficult. When these experiences happen, it's like bipolar people when they have their manic experiences. It's the same thing, really. It's you could call it these cycles manic and depressive, or only I don't really get depressed. I get low. I lose the connection. It goes away. It comes and goes in cycles, and then it comes back. Over the course of a year lately, it's been it's taken about it's about 1 year cycles lately. I'm not sure if it's speeding up or not, but it started for me in 2005. It went for a couple of weeks. It was crazy. And the reason it went so long is because I handled it really well. And the reason I managed to handle it very well is because it was at that point I'd, I'd really started to get a handle on the principle of allowance. That's probably the most important thing, and the thing I like to talk about the most. Allowance. To me, allowance is the first law, and possibly the only law, because everything is subject to that principle of allowance. I've heard in other teachings that the three laws, the first laws of creation, and allowance comes in number three and things like that. There's the law of attraction, uh, which law is cause and effect and all that sort of thing. But to me, allowance has to be the first law. It has to be the first law for anything to exist. For existence to exist, it must have allowance to exist. It must have space. It must have room. It must have a medium. It must be allowed. There's only yes or no. It must have a yes. There must be a yes. Because if there's a no, then there's nothing. There's no permission. There's no allowance. So basically, yes being allowance, basically, is that first law. It has to be the first law. I can't think of any other thing that can come before allowance. This is why I really find it hard to deal with all these other teachings. How can allowance come in after attraction? What is attraction, really? What is attraction? Is any attraction is a need, right? It's it's the result of something being missing. It's fulfilling a lack. Any desire is fulfillment of a lack, right? And for there to be a lack, well, there must first be something to lack. And all that has to be allowed first and foremost. You've got to have allowance. And this is the sort of thing I started stumbling upon. That started this chain reaction, this domino effect of joining dots in my mind. It just went crazy. It was getting that first and foremost principle, you know, getting a handle on allowance being the most important thing. And it simply came about with the thought that, well, what do you need? What principle can't be left out of existence? I mean, just for existence itself. What do you need for existence itself? And I harp on about this, but you you've got to drive this home. Really, just got to ask that one fundamental question: what do you need? It's it's a top-down process. You start at the top, so you shoot right to the first thing you got to have to have anything else. Basically, what do you have to have? You know, and don't you have to have allowance before anything else? What can you have before allowance? I've gone over it so many times, and I've gee, it's 9 years now. 9 years now since I really stumbled on it, and since it set off my journey, this immensely crazy bloody journey down a rabbit hole, and I still haven't come up with anything to beat that simple binary logical principle of yes and no, yes and no. That's it. Those are the two options. That's the binary logic of creation to me. Yes and no. Yes being allowance, acceptance, inclusion, and no being disallowance, exclusion, injunction. And that's it. It starts there, and just by considering those polarities when considering anything else, when asking questions, when thinking about anything, trying to find answers, trying to connect dots, just keep that in mind. Allowance. To have anything, you need allowance. Right? Now, from there, see, how do we explain this? There's so much water under the bridge since then. It's very difficult to start somewhere other than the beginning. What came next after I realised allowance was the first thing? It really, how that came about was seeing a good friend of mine, Gordon Driver, rest his soul. He really made me aware of the importance of permission in raising children, in treating children, in looking at, just being around children and people. Permission to be who they are. Just permission, just allowance and permission. He had one child, but he was just great around kids. They loved him, and he was really good with them. And, you know, and he really brought out their own. He validated them. He didn't dismiss them. He didn't negate them. He encouraged them, and I was the same because I had a lot of negativity, negation, which is what negativity is. Negative is negative. Okay, language is something I've cleared up a lot over the course of the years. Just what words actually mean. Um, but it came from a experience with being allowing around kids and just seeing how they flourish with that, with permission, just simple permission, just simple ability, validation, and allowance to be who they are. How how smart they are, where they don't have those doubts and those inhibitions, and those so many confusing and conflicting contradictions in their minds about, should I do it? Or should I do it? Shouldn't I? Should I say it? Or should I? So much complication is what negation gets you, is complication. And that's what negativity does. That's what no does, right? No. That's what no does. Yes simplifies things, doesn't it? Because it's allowing, it makes things simple. No complicates things. Because it introduces injunctions, it introduces impasses, obstructions to flow of information, energy, to whatever we want to use. No's do that. No's create resistance to information. And through that resistance, they create pressure. And through that pressure, violence, explosion, implosion. The expressions associated with those more violent channels of, information or flow of whatever, energy, water, anything you want to. They're going to be harsher, going to be more more well, you know, you can have sharper corners, lumps and bumps rather than smooth flowing curves and lines. And this is complication, and these are the things we associate with the term ugliness as opposed to the term beauty. Yeah? Which is why I came to that. Did I? I'm not sure if I came to that in 2005 in those first couple of weeks. The saying that beauty is simple logic, is beauty being the expression of simple logic by principle. Beauty, the smooth flowing curves and lines we associate with our understanding of beauty are those created and manifest by those principles, the principles of simplicity, of allowance and acceptance and inclusion. The yes principle as opposed to the no principle. There's so much to talk about here, and it's over the years I've learned so much because of this. Just from starting at that point, starting at the top, you might call it. This is the beginning. This is the and that's a difficult one to accept. That fundamentally everything starts with that simple logic, that yes and no. It's binary logic, and of course, it expands from there into the extensive binary, and then into trinary and all that sort of stuff. But it starts there, doesn't it? It has to start with binary logic. Start at the beginning. Can we have anything before that simple principle of allowance? If there is anything, please let me know. Maybe if you think of something, come up with something, let me know, because I want to know. I haven't come up with anything more fundamental than that principle, and that has opened up so many doors, and the experiences that I've had because of that. I mean, the experiences I had in 2005, looking back, they're pretty basic, but at the time, that was like a chosen one moment, because you're really in communication with what a religious person would call God. And because I'm not religious and I don't believe, because I started, well, I mean, there are things I believe, but I won't believe dogma. I just refuse to. Even knowledge that I'm taught in trade school, I learned at a very early age, in my teens, on the job as an apprentice electrician, that it's not necessarily how they say. Doesn't necessarily work best the way they tell you how to do it. In trade school, and how the tradesmen recommend it, even though they say, well, this is how we've been doing it for years, that's not necessarily the best way to do it. And I always challenge that. And lo and behold, I found more efficient ways to do things by just nutting them out on my own, because every situation is different. And it's easy enough to assign a method that works for most situations and just make that a rule, but it doesn't work for all situations. And once you start doing things differently, then you're changing the situation. And I became very efficient and very good at my job because I wouldn't believe what I was told. I'd always, be thinking of different ways to do things better and more efficiently. I'd have a lot of arguments with tradesmen because of that. But us, they soon learned. When they were working on my jobs, when I was a third-year apprentice, I don't know what to do. Fixing all their fuck-ups, going around fixing all their fuck-ups, because I basically taught myself how to fix problems, how to problem solve very early, just by going back to the beginning, nutting things out myself rather than just following rules. So rules I saw as beliefs, rules, just, and it's the same as the way I learn things. I didn't like to learn dogma, rote learning. I wanted to be able to figure it out for myself, so I didn't have to remember it. So I just knew how to work it out. Otherwise, you just have to remember all this shit, all this stuff. So if you don't know how to work it out, you got to remember a table of bloody numbers. I'm no good at that at all. So I got to figure out how to work everything out for myself. So I'm no good at rules. With electricity, you come with a thick book of rules, which is a bit of a contradiction in terms. Well, never really liked that rule book, but you learn a few rules, and basically it's all common sense anyway. Never went for rules, but always was good at thinking for myself, nutting it out. So that helped me out, and it really taught me the value of it. Well, not necessarily the value of belief, because belief does have value, but it has a value for specific things. And for the opposite of those specific things, it takes away. It doesn't have value. It's no good for certain things. So in my eyes, belief is for manifesting, and non-belief is for creating. And the two of those are like designing and building, right? Creation is the design. Manifesting is the take the design of the factory floor and put it together. Right? On the factory floor, you've got to have belief to do that job. You've got to have the workers. You've got to have the production line. But in the design department, you've got to have an open mind. And you've got to have that flexibility and an ability to not necessarily follow rules, but to think for yourself. It's two sides of the same coin. Well, it's the same coin, I suppose, because you can't have one without the other. You can't have manifestation without creation. You can't have creation without manifestation. Two sides of the same coin, they're positive and negative. And if we get to it, we'll see how they work together. They're the same sort of principles as belief and knowing. It's all two sides of the coin. There's not one is better than the other, but for specific purposes, for certain purposes, one is better than one serves one purpose, when the other serves the opposite purpose, and vice versa. And they don't serve that opposite purpose. One doesn't serve one purpose, and doesn't serve the opposite purpose. So belief is no good for being a creator, and knowing is no good for being a worker. And what I call knowing is basically intrinsic knowing, logical knowing that's irrefutable. Like logic is irrefutable. And I know spiritual people don't like working with logic. And that's one trouble I'm going to have, trying to convince. Well, I don't want to try to convince anyway, because it's all very logical. If you know what I mean. It can't not be the way it is. And once you start looking at things logically, and you can start looking at, you don't have to. I mean, people are invested in beliefs. Okay, we're all invested in these beliefs that we've been instilled with, and we've picked up since our childhood. Not just the religious beliefs, but all the beliefs. Every belief. Knowledge is a belief system as well, unless you know it. Unless you know exactly for yourself how it works, and it's self-evident. Well, it's just a belief, really, isn't it? If the whole world believes it, and it seems to be perfectly true, it's still just a belief system until you actually know it. Until you it doesn't need any reinforcement at all. Until you can just do it yourself. That is not a belief. To me, that's knowing, and that's what I call faith. Belief to me is not faith. That's another point of contention with religious dogma. What they call faith to me is belief, and what I call faith is nothing like religious dogma faith. It's not religious faith at all. It's faith in knowing that you can walk down the road without falling over because you've done it before, because you're experienced at it. That's my kind of faith. That's the only kind of faith I know. So if I ever say the word faith, well, that's what I mean. Because, we're going off topic here, but why would somebody invent two words to mean the same thing? Language has been contorted, twisted, obscured, just messed up completely. For many reasons, and for good reasons too, because we do use language to manifest creation. We use it as a force of manifestation. But we can also, by going back to the origins of language, use it as a force of creation as well. We do have to do that. We do have to go back to the origins of language, and get past all this, what we've turned it into, just a load of shit, basically. So we don't really know what we're talking about. We confuse ourselves. Everything's so ambiguous. Nothing actually means anything in particular if it means more than one thing, doesn't it? I mean, it's just look at the word law. It can mean something that can't be broken, and then it means something that will always be broken, like a rule, dictate. Rules are made to be broken, but the laws of physics can't be broken from within, from within their relative. What's that word for? Influence. Anyway, so you got this one word that means two completely opposite things. It doesn't mean anything really at all. Can you use it? How does a computer interpret these things? This is what we're getting to. We're going towards a computer age. where we're going to have a language that computers can understand. Otherwise, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to misinterpret what we say, and someone's going to get in trouble. We'll get there eventually. It has to happen. It has to happen. If we're ever going to get into artificial intelligence, we're going to have machines that can understand what we say. In order to do that, we'll have to clean up our language. We'll have to make it precise. The way it was in the beginning, it was actually precise. It is precise. If we're speaking in the right context, and language language means different things. Excuse me, in different dimensions, because we're talking about different paradigms. It means totally different things. So many meanings to the words. That's probably why we get so many meanings to words, because we borrow them from other paradigms where they don't really fit in the ones that we exist in. And those are the dimensions that we're talking about, as far as I can see. There's just the different paradigms we communicate, we live in, we communicate in, that we think in. You know, most nouns are actually verbs. Well, they all begin as verbs. Don't they? I mean, when we create something, we usually name it according to what it does. But in paradigms where there is no ownership, where there are no nouns, where there are no things, because everything is just energy, then nouns are all verbs anyway. Time is a verb. The word time is a verb. All there is timing. The way I see the beginning of life, or the beginning of the universe, or at least what the omega, the alpha, the omniscient, the omnipotent, and the omnipresent. Information existing in an infinite loop, where it can be everywhere at the same time, can see everything at the same time, and do anything at the same time, because it's an infinite. It is a superconductive medium, not necessarily infinite loop. A superconductive medium. Information in a superconductive medium can theoretically be omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, can't it? any information, form of information that could possibly be aware of itself or aware of its surroundings, or, any mind in that sort of situation can be those things, because being in a superconductive environment, there's no resistance to movement. There's no resistance at all. Absolutely no resistance. Absolutely no resistance means, excuse me, any particle or non-particle, any piece of anything can be everywhere at the same time. Yeah. So there's our definition of God as information existing in a superconductive medium. And we see that in zero Kelvin materials that conduct electricity with absolutely no resistance. Obviously, this electron can be everywhere at the same time. So if it has any ability, well, it should be able to do everything at the same time. And if we have that at the beginning, then how do we get something out of it? Well, we must have slowed things down. If we had that at the beginning, the only way to have what we have, what we call our physical reality, is we had to slow it down. Now, how do you do that? You introduce heat. How do you do that? How do you introduce heat? What is heat? Friction. How do you introduce friction? Perhaps, I don't know. Well, what is heat? What is heat? Well, let's go back to principles. The principle of allowance. We've introduced some form of negation, disallowance, and we've slowed things down suddenly. All of a sudden, we have, because we've slowed things down, we have a slight temporal difference. Now, if we start slowing things down in a superconductive loop, we start getting time. We start getting temporal differentiation between two pieces of information or two points or in space or whatever. And the more we slow things down, things start breaking down. Perhaps, somehow I have written this down somewhere. Written everything down in bits and pieces, and dribs and drabs. Part of the reason I'm making these recordings is to, just to go over this stuff in my own head over and over again, so I can make some heads or sense out of it. Because usually when I'm in those hyperdimensional experiences, they're just going through so quickly. And I'm not in one of those right now. I was in one of those over Christmas, this last Christmas, for a long time, matter of months. This Christmas just gone. Well, not just gone, it's bloody August now, but this previous 2013, 2014 Christmas, and before that the 2012, 2013 Christmas, and before that the 2011, 2012 Christmas, and before that during 2011, was it March, April, May, and June in 2011, 4 months. 4 months of intense, that was like bloody hell, Dark Night of Soul shit, that 4 months. That was so intense. There was a lot of physical pain, a lot of physical cleansing in the body, that one. And just every day a different pain. And just one day, my whole left leg, right up to above the knee, from the ankle up to the knee, just swelled up like a balloon. The first day I woke up and my ankle was swollen. I was like, oh, did I bang this or something while I was sleeping in the night? What's going on here? And the next day, the whole thing was just swollen up like a balloon, and I could hardly walk on it. Well, I could walk on it, but it was, and it was like going back to when I was 14, when somebody rode over my bloody ankle with a motorbike and did a wheelie over it. Just natural instinct. You didn't mean to, but somehow I got caught my foot while I was, a bit of stupidity. But just bug up my ankle and my whole, and I think they might have fixed it with some cement or something in my ankle. Whether that was releasing some toxins. It was revisiting that time. A lot of that was going on, revisiting old injuries and revisiting other old injuries as well that weren't even mine, possibly like spiritual family or whatever injuries. I did a lot of that empathic healing stuff that people talk about. I did some injuries. I never had these injuries. These must be coming from somewhere else. Stabbing pains in the chest, and all sorts of shit was going on. It was pretty intense, but you get used to it after a while, and you learn that just by not resisting it, it goes away very quickly. And it wasn't as bad as the real thing, But, sometimes it felt like it. And this went on for a month and a bit during this 4-month episode of this crazy synchronous and intuitive. There was learning. Seemed like a lot of triangulation of information and space-time coordinates and things like that. It's just the things I can't explain right now. It's so far out of that right now. The things they used to send people crazy. And if someone would go talking to a psychiatrist about that, would be put on bloody drugs and all sorts of stuff. And other things like there's a lot of suggestion going on at the same time. Because suggestion's a big part of it. And it's part of the lessons. It's part of the testing, the suggestions. If you're open to suggestions and you're gonna believe shit, well you're not really ready to advance. So you're gonna get caught in the suggestions. You're just gonna have to learn your lesson the hard way. And that's where during these suggestions, that's where the law of allowance really, really helped because of understanding this law of allowance, I could make my own mind up. I could say, well, that suggestion, I'll allow it to a point until it starts getting beyond allowance, until I start once it's got me negating things, and once it starts getting me doing things that I don't want to do, well, okay. Or I think, well, that's not respecting their rights to, that's that sort of stuff. I hear things about people do weird things like, weird things in public and stuff like that. I can always stop myself because because I understand those principles. I understand that these things are tested. I understand those suggestions, what they're for. I understand that everything is all these lessons. They're like how did I explain that? They're like lessons and tests and you know when you pass, you get affirmed. You get affirmations, or you get confirmations. And if you listen to confirmations, um, you're getting conned. And you're pretty much taking a booby prize in a way. You know, it's like selling out a confirmation. You're always enticed with what do you call those consolation prizes? Consolation, to be consoled. No, I'm not happy with console. Don't console me, please. Probably not a good time to be talking about that because it's been a while since those experiences. Quite a while. Uh, yeah, I think we'll just stick to those principles for this recording. Just the allowance. What comes from that? So much by connecting my own dots. Just with that one principle. That's really what I want to get out there. The binary logic. To be able to accept that, to understand the beliefs that we believe and we invest so much of our life in, and it becomes so hard to uh, to change, to push them aside because we've invested so much in them. Yeah. Understand that they are valuable things and they serve their purpose. They have a purpose to serve. They are valuable things, these beliefs that we have, these belief systems that we have. We need these belief systems, but understand they're not the be all and end all. They're only half of the picture. You know. And part of our lessons, everything's a lesson. It seems these lessons never stop. They just go on and on and on and on and on. And I'm always undergoing lessons. Doesn't matter how much I learn, there's always more lessons. And it's easy to get cocky, you know, uh, too easy. And I do. And sometimes it's easy to get angry. Those lessons will always be there. There's always going to be something to push you over the edge, push you a little bit further, a little bit to that next epiphany, to that next great epiphany that just opens up a whole new ballgame. It never ends. It never ends. It never ends. I think I'm gonna leave this for now and just I don't know. Let me know what you think if you want to hear any more, what you want to hear about. Uh, thanks for listening.